Good evening, everybody. We are back. We've been off for a little while because of this, that, and the other. Life kind of gets in the way from time to time, but we are back. This is the Bluegrass Sports Guys. I'm Mike Stubblefield. I am joined here tonight with, as always, David Henley from down in Oldham County, Kentucky, and deep down in the Purchase area, Rob Cross is with us tonight from down in Murray, Kentucky. And so, as you probably know, we're going to talk and we're going to lead off with the fact that the Murray State Racers are in the College Baseball World Series, which is an absolutely unbelievable statement, something I never thought I would ever be saying. But they are in the College World Series after winning the first ever regional, going down to Ole Miss. They won, what they win? 4 games down there, or three? They beat Ole Miss twice, beat Georgia Tech, and
Yeah,
then
the 3 games.
3 games, and then they
Three
won.
games. They won that first game, so then they're in the winner's bracket.
Yeah.
And then they had to beat Georgia Tech and then beat Ole Miss 1 out of 2.
And then they basically had to win that game twice last night because
Yeah.
I was hooting and hollering on that last out, and then it hit me like, man, they're going to appeal that, and then probably going to win it.
Which
And I was
and if
thinking,
you're Duke's coach, you have to ask for the review. Like,
oh yeah,
I mean, you
yeah,
have to. So I don't doubt I don't fault him for asking for it. I thought the call was correct, although very close, the way the rules are now. And the umpire was right there on top of it, looking right at it. I don't think he missed it. But you can't argue either way because it was close, and you'd hate to see a game end that way. And if it ended that way, then everybody's talking about Duke got cheated out of their chance to go to the College World Series for the first time since Kennedy was in office.
right.
So
So immediately when I saw that, and then they're dogpiling, and then I see that they're reviewing it, I'm going like worst case. I'm thinking worst case scenario, like this is going to be like a legendary way to lose a game. They're going to think they have won it and then somehow lose it. But I really can't believe that they ended up making, a 5-4 lead, a 5-3 lead, whatever they had stand up. I was thinking they were going to have to go out and score 10, 12 runs again.
yeah, I thought they would need 10 plus, especially with the pitching situation the way it was, having used up a lot of their arms. Uh, but man, what a great defensive ball club. They're one of the best defensive ball clubs in NCAA baseball. And the pitchers in the game last night, they really just threw the ball as well as they could. They threw the ball across the plate and let their defense play.
Stayed away.
And
They
I
stayed
thought,
away. Yeah, they stayed away from all those walks that have
yeah,
been their bugaboo for the
right.
past week and a half or so. But
And I don't know anything about pitching. So,
they,
like, I don't know anything about it. But,
this
like,
guy right here
with
does.
that defense, yeah. So, Henley, what's going through those guys' minds going into that game last night when you're facing, like, Duke led the NCAA in walks this year. And they got guys that can jack it out of the park when a guy gets on.
Well, the thoroughbred did a fine job. Of, if you throw the ball down the middle of the plate, anybody can hit it hard. If you got the ball on the outside part of the plate, inside part of the plate, with a little bit of movement, you'll have success. But I think you already mentioned. I mean, there's no you can't, you can't do anything about a walk. And if you make people hit the ball, it's interesting because when I was in college, we used to hitters aren't smart. So what our coach would do was we'd have inter squad, and he would tell us you can't throw any breaking pitches. You have to throw fastballs and changeups. And they never figured it out. And every game was 2-1, 3-2, 1-0, 2-1. It was just if you throw the ball across the plate, well, I say across the plate, give your defense a chance. You're probably gonna have success.
Well, I just think about guys.
Yeah.
If you go to a Major League Baseball game and you watch batting practice, those guys are taking batting practice, hitting off of 72, 75 mile an hour straight fast. And every now and then, those guys don't hit one, they'll pop it up. they'll foul it back every now and then. So,
Right.
that's just those are pitches just laid in there for them, and they don't hit every one of those on the screws. So, you're getting regulation length, you're getting between 85, 90 mile an hour pitches, you know, yeah, it's just putting pressure on them
Let
to
me
hit it.
Yeah, let me ask you another pitching question, Henley, because I was told that the first game in the Ole Miss regional, that Ole Miss was struggling making good contact because they hadn't faced guys that are throwing as slow as the Murray rotation. That they've been facing guys throwing mid 90s because they're in the SEC for so long and not playing so many non-conference games. Is there much to that, or is it just kind of like excuse making for the first loss?
It's a little bit of both. I mean,
Okay.
when you're playing 60 games a year and 30 of them are against guys bringing it 90 to 95, even harder, and then you come in against guys that are 85, it does make a difference. It throws your timing off.
Right.
But a good hitter is going to see the ball and hit the ball.
Right.
But there is an adjustment even for good hitters. They have to adjust. How hard did Greg Maddox throw? And that's he's an exception to just about every rule. Remember John Tudor? Remember how
Mhm.
good he was?
Mhm.
Maddox, those guys, they change speeds. If you throw everything the same speed, the same spot, those guys are going to just crush it. But changing speeds and moving in, move it out, move it up, move it down, you can give guys problems.
Yeah, I was impressed. First of all, Skirka, I mean, he's a friend of mine, but man, if there's not, I don't know what coach in the country, if I was a power conference AD, I would call before I call that guy. Uh,
Yeah.
and second of all, the guy who Kellum, the guy who closed the games for Murray State, both in Oxford and then at Durham the last two nights. Man, what guts, and uh, that was big time stuff to throw 3 innings the night before and then come back last night. They had the guy came out, got one out for them, and then Dan Skirka went to the mound, took him out, brought in Kellum to pitch 2 2/3 innings after pitching three the night before. And the announcer is talking about, well, he's not, is he going to be able to go the distance? He just pitched last night. He's not going to have as much. And then he's throwing harder than he threw the night before. Like I,
There's some guys they can throw every day, and it doesn't bother them. When the year we won a conference, we had a kid. I don't want to rat him out. We lived in the same apartment complex. He was an engineering student. Those guys were up studying till 1, 2 in the morning. Then they go out back and play catch with a football. And he wasn't doing it to strengthen his arms. He was just kind of that way.
yeah.
But you know what? You can put a bazooka out there, and if you put a baseball belt high in the middle of the plate, those guys are going to hit it. So it's about changing speeds and moving the ball around.
Right.
Well, it was it was crazy because and I was telling Dave before you jumped on, Rob. I have two cousins that both played at Murray State. They both played for Johnny Reagan in the mid '80s, early '90s,
So true.
and so we were. And my cousin John was actually down there. He was at that game last night. So it's just a surreal experience, and it was the only game on last night, so the whole country got to watch.
Right.
And
And man, those guys, they look like they're having fun, and
it's
I
not
mean,
out of the realm. I mean, they beat a top 10 SEC team on their home field, beat Georgia Tech. They went. I don't know what Duke was ranked.
ACC champion. Georgia Tech was the ACC champion.
ACC champion. Like, it's not out of the realm of possibility they could go and make some noise in Omaha.
I mean, at this point, like in basketball, if you're in the Elite Eight, hell, I think anybody can beat anybody. And I mean, college baseball to me, and I've loved it for a long time, but the tournament is just so exciting because you could have a 9-10 run lead and give that thing up in an inning or two, or you could be down 9 or 10, and next thing you know, it takes is 1 or 2 innings, and you're right back in it. I think anybody can beat anybody, and Murray State could certainly win their first game against UCLA, and then you're in that winners bracket, and you're sitting pretty.
I couldn't agree with you more. I lost my train of thought, but anyway, it was. I didn't watch all the game. I was switching back and forth and kind of. But you were talking about coming back from a lot of runs and scoring a lot of runs. I mean, you saw that with Kentucky. Kentucky blew 2 5-run leads, and
Yeah.
they were
Kentucky should have advanced, really.
Yeah.
The way the games were going.
Yeah, I've really gotten into the college baseball tournament. Before, I'd only maybe watched a few of the super regional games and the College World Series, but the past 2 or 3 years, I've watched it from the very beginning on. It's just, to me, it's just, I think it's a really great format, the way they do it now. There's not, you don't have the randomness or as much of the randomness as you do with the college basketball tournament. But you
Right.
you can't have that kind of format with college basketball. But I've really enjoyed watching it for the past 2 or 3 years.
One thing about with Murray having a chance. I mean, who would have thought in 2016, maybe 17, that Coastal Carolina would have won the College World Series,
Right.
and they did.
And now
And
they're a top 20 program.
and they're back. They're in it again this year. So, they and the thing about Murray is, and I mean, in any sport at tournament time, they're hot and they're playing with a lot of confidence, and
Yeah,
that's to
man, when
me,
you
to me,
consider
that is the most important thing any athlete can have is confidence.
right.
And they got a team full of guys that have a lot of confidence.
Yeah, and that's the transfer portal has helped the baseball team tremendously. They got some guys from some different places that just happen like it. The style that Skirka's teams play, the style Murray State plays, the change in setting. For whatever reason, they got some guys that came in and just fit and locked in. And I don't know that they thought they were going to be very good in the fall, Henley. I think they probably all kind of thought, we'll be okay. But I mean, they were picked to finish 5th in the Missouri Valley, but then they won a few games, and like you said, that confidence once you get rolling in any sport. But I think it's remarkable. I mean, from a funding standpoint and from a facility standpoint, Murray State is probably bottom 2 or 3. I know for a fact they're bottom 2 or 3 in the Missouri Valley. And you go and get it done like that, and now you're in the College World Series. And the story circulating by everybody that, I mean, the coach mows the grass on the field. Like how crazy is that? 800 seat stadium.
That
It's
picture
wild.
that's circulating is an old picture because Brandon's Auto World is still behind. It's still out,
It is.
but I mean,
It is.
but everybody gets the point. It's and
But the last regular season series against Missouri State, and we hadn't really talked since then. They had to cancel the final 2 games. Those 2 teams were tied for the regular season title. Murray beat them in the first game pretty badly, and then they had to cancel the final 2 games because the outfield had standing water in it.
oh wow,
Yeah, and the Missouri State coach said, "Hey, I understand they didn't want to play either." Missouri State's coach is like, "We're coaching, like we got a championship. I don't want to play, and you can't play. Like you got standing water in the outfield. It was dangerous." So, like they had to cancel a championship series for a regular season title because of standing water, and it was sunny and 82 degrees, and everybody's like, "Why are they canceling baseball games?" But the field was in such bad shape, it was really unplayable.
you guys remember? I know Dave does. I don't know if you do, Rob. Old Dragon Field down there,
Oh yeah,
right on campus. That was
yeah.
an awesome venue.
I
And how
pitched there.
great was it, Henley? Like you just kids walk into class and skip a couple of classes. Good baseball game going on in the afternoon. Skip a couple of classes, catch a few innings. How was that that was a hitter's field, wasn't it, Henley?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, pop-ups were going out of ballpark. I pitched, I think, 3 innings and gave up 1 hit, and it was a home run to Dave Winder.
Winder got you.
Yeah, man, it's so bad though. It was a pop up, man. The field wasn't very big, and the ball flew out of there. But he got me.
I
But
watched
I know we played them.
with Iowa.
I think that was in the fall though.
Okay.
But yeah,
I,
it was because see, I was from Carlisle County, and I mean, I knew there were some people there that I knew, and you'd
right.
see people walking back and forth from class, so it was kind of cool.
Yeah.
It was a good atmosphere. There weren't many people there that were just sitting there watching the game, but yeah, it was kind of cool to be out there on the mound and look up and see just people walking by.
And they'd stop and stand up there on the little pedestrian walkway because
Yeah,
it was right across from the Curris Center, from the student center on campus, and people just stop and stand and watch an inning or a half an inning. I watched them play Iowa in that field one game, and it was like 24-21 or something. Like, it's incredible how many balls flew out of that field.
yeah, it was a home run derby.
So let's shift gears. Another big story happened this week. The NIL house settlement, the rule change, and all of that. So, Rob, I know that you could probably explain everything to us better than trying to read an article or something like that. So, in its basic terms, what's going on with all this now?
Okay, so basically, the schools are allowed to spend up to 22% of their athletic revenue on salaries to pay their players, to pay their athletes. I won't really call them student athletes anymore, but so that is capped though at 20.5 million for this season for the 25-26 school year. Now that's going to increase every year. Okay, so it's going to be like a 4% increase, so about $1 million each year, all the way until like 2034, 2035, where it'll be like $33 million, $32.9 million of salary that schools are allowed to pay their athletes. This is separate from NIL, from true NIL. So now what they're supposed to be doing is true NIL will have to be earned at a going rate. So like if a kid does a commercial for a car dealership, they can't get a $350,000 Bugatti and $500,000 for doing one commercial. It has to be the going rate. Now that there's a wide range of going rates for things, but it has to be the basic going rate for whatever job they're doing for their NIL. That is all, the big what's the name? The big accounting firm,
Deloitte.
Deloitte. They're they're supposed to be keeping track of all of the NIL. Now the student athletes, the athletes are the NIL part of it. They're supposed to enter into the system what they're getting in NIL, anything over $600. Okay? They're supposed to put it in the system, not the school. And then the school is responsible for whether that is done or not, or if there's a violation, like getting too much money to turn, like, there was a story that there was a Kentucky basketball player, and I won't say who it was, but that he had a briefcase, he worked at a bank, and his job was to walk in, say hi to one person, and leave. And he got a whole lot of money for it. But the school is going to be responsible if there's a violation, but they are not the ones, administrators are not the ones entering the money into the system. It's up to the student athlete, to the athlete to do that. So
Yeah, that won't cause
how
a
they're going to
problem at
police
all.
that, it's all going to be a big mess for a while. That's the bottom line.
So what about the 2.8 billion that they're going to have to retro pay the people from 2016?
I don't know how that's going to be determined. What I was told is that you have to prove what your worth was.
Hmm.
And how do you do that? And when it comes down to it, like that's for every single athlete that played at any school in college in any sport. So
Division one,
2.8
two, or
billion
three.
for that many people eventually, not a lot of money. And I don't know how they determine like what's your worth. Like I had a player who was a really good first team all conference player and all that, but women's basketball at every school I mean, South Carolina lost money last year. Like South Carolina loses money. So women's basketball at every school in the country just about loses money. So how do you prove that you brought in revenue when your sport lost money? And that's every sport but football and men's basketball.
Well, something else I wanted to mention. and you probably heard the news also, they were going to cap each sport, but Kentucky pushed back and said, we don't want to cap. So I wonder if, are you going to see these programs like Kentucky, Kansas, Duke that have football, but are like, if you're
Yes.
good in football, that's great, that's cute, you know, that's going to be great, but we're trying to hang those banners in the basketball arena.
Yes, and the schools have until, they changed the date. I think they have, it's sometime coming up, June 13th or something, to actually opt in. I'm not exactly sure of that date, but they have a date that they have to opt into revenue sharing or they cannot do it. And then they have to follow all the rules set forth in the settlement. And you could go, lawyers don't even know what's really going down. I've talked to administrators at a couple of different schools, and they're like, don't know how this is going to work exactly. I'm actually more confused now than I was before the settlement was finalized. Uh, but it's just going to be interesting to see what schools do, because like Vanderbilt, I was told Vanderbilt is going to spend more money on baseball than most schools would, because they make money off of baseball. A lot of those SEC schools make revenue. Baseball makes revenue.
Mississippi State.
Uh, yeah. So if you're Vanderbilt, what do you spend your money on? How often are you going to be good enough in football that you're competing for, like the playoffs or the championship at Vanderbilt? Once every 20 years, you get Jay Cutler. Maybe you're good enough to win 8 games and sneak into a 16-team playoff. So why not spend the money where you can win championships and make money? Kentucky, they should spend the money. Now they have to spend enough on football to stay competitive, because Kentucky fans expect it, and the stadium will be empty when they're not competitive at Kentucky. But if you're Kentucky or Duke or Kansas, like you said, men's basketball is where it's at for you. So, there are going to be schools doing that. The other thing that's going to happen, guys, schools are going to be cutting sports eventually,
Right.
because you're not going to be able to justify. Oh, and scholarship numbers are going way up. Like volleyball scholarship is going from 12 to 18. And every single person, men's basketball goes from 13 to 15, effective immediately. And every single person that is part of your program counts as a scholarship athlete. So there are no more non-scholarship walk-ons. You don't have to give them a scholarship necessarily, but they count against your scholarship limit automatically.
Yeah,
So there are a lot of working parts to it.
that's one thing that someone talked about this yesterday. It might have been Matt Jones where I heard it, but this is probably the biggest shift, biggest change in college athletics, probably since integration back in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
It's crazy. And the other thing is, what about these schools like St. John's, Villanova, Creighton, that don't have? I think I don't know if they have football. I think Villanova has a football team. But my point is,
Howie Long played there.
Howie Long did play at Villanova, played football at Villanova, but they're just going to funnel all their money to basketball and just
But there is, the percentage of athletic revenue, because it's 22% of your athletic revenue. So they also do not have the athletic revenue that a Kentucky or an Alabama or a Tennessee
well, I
has,
didn't.
because
So
they get a very minimal piece of the football pie. You know what I'm saying? Like, what does UConn's
okay,
football team get
right,
for TV deals? Whereas Vanderbilt gets a ton of money from TV deals.
right,
So I haven't done the math and really looked at it. I don't know if UConn or St. John's in particular, especially the schools without football, like Gonzaga and those schools, I don't know if they're going to have 22% of their athletic revenue equals $20.5 million.
yeah, that's a good point.
Like, so, maybe that advantage, like maybe they have more money to funnel into basketball a little bit, but maybe it's just like a million or two, a couple $1 million here and there against the Dukes and Kentuckys. But I mean, it's going to break. It will hasten the Power Five breaking away from the rest of the schools and doing their own thing. That's
That's
what
what's
I
going to
think.
happen. They're going to tell the NCAA, "See you, suckers."
They've already floated. The Big Ten and SEC already floated taking over the NCAA tournament. And if they run the NCAA tournament, who's going to? I mean, all you're not going to see Murray State and Davidson and schools like that in the NCAA tournament. You're going to see LSU in there.
Being a NIT, baby.
Or
Bring
I
it
mean,
back.
they'll have an NCAA tournament, but it'll basically be like Division Two. It'll be like when football split and went 1A, 1AA.
Well, and then the other thing is that these college rosters, and Kentucky finally has their roster finalized, right? So
Yes, that's what they're saying.
it's it's crazy for me to look at that roster. They're professional basketball rosters.
They
Kids,
are.
you don't have these little pudgy walk-ons, that you're throwing a favor, and they're like NBA rosters. I mean, even the guys at the end of the bench are good
You
players,
got a top 50 guys on the end of the bench.
right? And
Yeah.
it's just crazy for me to think about how much has changed and how um, general managers now. All these programs have general managers, which they have to have a
I just
general
met
manager.
Murray State's. I met Murray State's new general manager this weekend. Nice, great guy, Ernie Kuiper.
And they don't, and they're not playing these. I did see an article the other day. I'd like your comments on it. They were talking to Ryan Miller about not playing non-Division One schools anymore
Mm-hmm.
because he was talking about how the NCAA tournament or the NCAA selection committee, it's all about the net rankings, and
Right, it is.
you have
It's
nothing,
gotten
nothing to gain, and how bad you beat teams plays a part in it. Plays a part of it.
Yeah, and those games don't count at all. So they don't even count as wins. So if you play a non, and that's been that way for a long time, like even a decade ago when I was still coaching. If you play a non-Division One team, it's like it didn't happen. So you don't get credit for a win. So like if your record is 20-12 at the end of the year and you played two non D1 teams, the record that they're looking at is 18-12.
Yeah.
So it doesn't affect your numbers one way or the other, but you do not get those opportunities to better your numbers for NCAA tournament resumes. So I think Ryan Miller is absolutely correct about that. But now at Murray State in the Missouri Valley Conference, you should have enough money, which I believe they do now, to go in and to go out and buy games and have enough weaker Division One opponents that are not they're not guaranteed wins, but they should be. When you're paying people to come to your place, you should win the game. You're not going to win every time, but you should. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If you're giving somebody a big check to come play basketball at your place, you ought to beat them. So they probably have a little more money to buy games and get weaker opponents in that are Division One teams. And then you got to walk the fine line of, like people have complained about Calipari about this for years. Calipari does favors for people, played Mississippi Valley State when, uh, who was there? Dale Brown was there.
Sean Woods.
On
Sean Woods was
Woods.
there. Right. Played them. They're like 325 in the RPI and the net. They're like at the bottom. But, Calipari's doing a favor for a UK guy. And then he started the classic thing, where they're playing HBCUs. And that was more important to him than whatever his net ranking was. It drove, a lot of Kentucky fans crazy. And they said, he just doesn't understand. But he understood. He just didn't care.
Henley, what do you think about expanding the schedule of the season to north of 40 games?
A wise man once told me you can schedule yourself out of a job, so you better be careful. Because people look at your record, even though the NCAA looks at it as two Division two wins don't count, but you know, Joe Bob that has the car dealership sees that you were 18-12 and didn't win 20 games or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, you can schedule yourself out of a job.
Yep.
So that's one thing coaches have to always, there have been coaches that schedule themselves out of jobs. So What was your other question? I forgot. I was thinking about that
I was
scheduling stuff.
talking about
Oh, 40 games?
yeah.
I mean, to me, it's kind of like the NBA. 82 games are way too many. But because of the records and things like that, they're probably not ever going to move it back. I mean, do you want to me, a college season it's special. Every game is big. And, now you're going to have, a Tuesday night game, a Thursday night game, a Saturday game, a Sunday afternoon game, and it just gets watered down. And I don't like it. But, it's kind of like the NFL. You see these guys walking around nowadays that look like they've been in 20 car wrecks, and NFL doesn't care. They're going to play 18 weeks. They're going to play, 17 games because it's money.
Yep.
And if college basketball can make more money by scheduling more games, that's what they're going to do. I don't like it. It waters it down. So that's my 2 cents.
I think
But if you're going to pay players millions of dollars,
I
you
mean,
have
yeah,
to
you
have
got to,
revenue.
no doubt. I mean, that no doubt,
well,
100%.
and that's what Mark Pope said. He kind of made the point like, hey, they're professional athletes. He's like, if you play in the NBA, chances are a good chance you're going to get up on Christmas morning and have to play a game or the day after
No
Mm-hmm.
or
doubt.
whatever. Like,
I mean, you bring up a good point. It's becoming professional basketball. I mean, not becoming. It is
It
professional
is.
basketball.
You're
It's
right.
just not the. It's just not the NBA. It's almost like now it's a paid minor league. I mean, CBA or what is
The
what's
G League,
the D League?
G League, they
I
make.
mean,
I
you
mean,
don't.
college at the SEC level, all the Power Five schools, those guys, and at some other schools, those guys are making more money than dudes in the G League.
Oh, a lot
So
more
like,
money.
I don't know if this is
A
100%
lot more
accurate.
money.
Right. I don't know if it's 100% accurate, but do you all remember Brian Moore Jr. played at Murray State 2 years ago?
mm-mm.
Okay, he came off the bench at Murray State, started a couple of games, average. I don't remember what he averaged. Pretty good player. All right. And I liked his game. I thought maybe he should give him the ball a little more and just get people out of his way because he could create his own shot 2 years ago. He transfers to Norfolk State. He's the average 17, 18 points a
Oh,
game, mid-major player of the year. He just signed, what I was told was he signed with Grand Canyon for his final year, 800 grand at Grand Canyon.
But these guys also they're making more money than they would if they were a second round draft pick.
Yeah, a lot of them are like
And
all those guys that came back, like Owe, who were the two guys? Yaxel Lindenberg up at Michigan. He's a first round guy. Like he could have been a lottery guy. He's a fringe lottery guy. So he had guaranteed 3 years of money, and he's going to make more money at Michigan than he would have in the NBA next year.
yeah, but to me, Dave's talked about it being watered down. To me, I think all sports are watered down.
yeah.
When we were growing up, it was special to watch baseball on Saturday afternoons or whenever they televised the games. I think actually at one point they had Monday night baseball, right?
It's when Hank Aaron hit his home run.
Yeah,
I think it was on Monday night. It was a night game.
yeah, and then with the broadening of the cable channels and the audience, then that was Sunday night baseball. Then it was they play base, and then football the same way. You have Thursday night baseball or Thursday night football, Monday night. You have the games on all day Sunday. Um,
Mhm.
I think it's that way across the board for all of them. Yeah, and it's what drives the numbers and drives people to
What?
make more money. So I don't blame them. But to me, it just kind of like I think it's all watered down.
Yeah, there was a point I want to say in the fall. I don't know, it's somewhere in end of September. There was a string of 52 consecutive days where you could watch a football game on television.
Yeah.
52 straight days you could watch football on TV.
Wow.
Yeah, they in college football they play every weeknight.
Yeah, they play Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Was the MAC? They play every Thursday night on ESPN, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the Sun Belt's on Tuesday and somebody else is on Wednesday, and
And
Yeah, it's
I
just
don't blame them. It's good exposure for them.
no. Yeah, and they get money.
Yeah, they get money and
Get on TV.
viewership. Um,
I mean, that's a big deal for those lower level conferences to be on TV.
yeah,
That's huge.
I mean, you remember how big of a deal it was, when you coached at Murray State. How many times, Murray, they had that game every year. It seemed like they had a game where you played at midnight. Am
Yeah,
I?
the midnight
My
special on ESPN.
Yeah,
my first year at Murray State, we played at SIU. Game started at 11 o'clock, and halftime was midnight. And Terry Birdsong became eligible at halftime
that's right. I do remember that.
because he transferred at Christmas, and the semester ended on that Friday, and the game was Friday night at 11 o'clock. And when the clock struck 12, Bird had set out 2 semesters, and he was eligible, and he played a little bit in the second half, and that was kind of a cute little thing that ESPN talked about.
I do remember that
But
now.
yeah,
Oh, but there's one other thing that caught my eye. There was a rule change in college basketball. Rob, why don't you explain that?
Which one?
Coach's challenge.
Man, theoretically, it's supposed to eliminate the number of reviews. Okay, because coaches use, and Dan Skirka did it in the baseball tournament. He asked for a review in the game the other night. Ball hit a guy's toe, clearly off the guy, and Dan asked for a review in the baseball game because Duke's momentum, like Duke was getting the momentum, and he needed a timeout, and you can't just call timeout. So he asked for a review, and I'm like, "Were you just doing that to get a timeout?" And he said, "Oh, I couldn't see it at all. Like I don't know. Like from where I was standing, I had no clue." So yeah, he did that just to get a timeout. I used to do that. Coaches do it. Like, hey, can you go review that? Well, now, I mean, you get your challenge. Can you go review that? And if you're wrong, it hurts your team. So I think that's going to be. I don't think it's going to eliminate the reviews because I still think they're going to go to the monitor every time the ball goes out of bounds and put a tenth of a second back on the clock or run 2/10 off. But I think it's. I don't think it's really going to impact the game much at all. But I could be wrong.
Well, I'm hoping it does. I hope we don't have those scenarios where last year there was a game at Texas A&M and somebody, and the last 3 minutes took 45 minutes.
Yeah, I mean that's part of the reason for it. And another part of the reason for it is, I mean, if a call's made, and you happen to know, like that they blew that call, and it's a big call, and then you can use your challenge, and that could change. That could change outcomes of games for sure. I don't think it's really going to affect the timing of the game. I think you're still going to have those 45-minute things because a lot of that coaches do that some, but a lot of that is the referees saying, I'm being evaluated. I got to go make sure, the ball went off the right person or the timing. Like they're still going to do that.
Yeah.
That's what my concern is because it's no fun to watch. I don't think it's probably any fun to be like, I know it's not to be on the bench with all those reviews going on. And I'll tell you, doing the broadcast, it's no fun as a broadcaster either. So, I mean, I don't know who it's fun for. I don't know if the referees don't really like it. The ones I've talked to. So I don't, I mean,
Rob, do you make a list before each game of miscellaneous topics to talk about if you're caught in a do, do you jot down like, let me talk about that,
a
talk
lot of
about
people, a
that?
lot of people do make a list. I'll just have some thoughts in my mind. So like I might go if they're playing somebody who has a tie to, if it's a Murray State game, if they're playing somebody that has a tie to Murray State, or if, somebody has a tie to an opponent, things like that. Like I talked about, one kid's dad had scored 64 points in a game in college. Like the guy knocked down a couple of shots. The game was like a 25-point game halfway through the second half. And so I talked about that game, and what a great player the kid's dad was. Uh, I had a women's game. I talked about there was a kid from Spain playing for the University of Evansville, and I talked about her hometown. They hosted the kayak and canoeing events at the Barcelona Olympics. So I did some research, like how to pronounce the little Spanish town and the region, and I talked about the town, and I actually got messages through Facebook Messenger from people from that town. Her dad and then two other people from the town messaged me, found me on Facebook, and were talking about how awesome they thought it was that somebody was talking about their little town on ESPN.
If you're playing a team from down in South Florida, you can talk about Henley could talk about the time he was walking through the South Florida, Miami, whatever it is, airport with a sack full of cash.
Miami International.
That back before purchasing cards, Henley,
They
where you
wouldn't
got
give
all
me a
the
credit
cash
card.
before the trip.
I was considered part-time, so they wouldn't give me a credit card. So I had to carry cash and some traveler's checks.
Yeah,
But I had
I
to
had to do
cash. I had to cash for a month.
that. For a month?
Well, we get out of school December.
So like Christmas break, you had Christmas break
Yeah,
cash, not
I
just
had
the trip.
Christmas break cash, and we went to St. Louis, Florida International, Ole Miss. I think the Middle Tennessee Tech trip. It was insane.
And you had a bowling
So
bag,
you're giving out per diem.
and you had a bowling ball
You're
What's
bag
giving
that?
full
out
of
per
cash.
diem every day and carrying all that cash around.
I had a briefcase. At one point, I had over $30,000 cash. I flew into the Miami International Airport with $30,000 in my briefcase.
Yeah, you'd be flagged and put on the no-fly list today.
Yep.
Wow. So
Wow.
let me ask, so were you in charge of like making the budget, or did someone like here's how all this like you had the actual cash? Were you the one that says like, well, it's going to cost this much to eat at Golden Corral for the team?
Yeah, I made an itemized list of everything we were going to do and every day. And, the players got $20 a day back then. And, we'd be there in 3 or 4 days, might not have a game, then you'd play, and then you're there for 3 or 4 more days. So they were getting $20 a day. Well, they're taking it, and some of them were going, I'm not going to mention any names, went up to Walmart and got a Sony Walkman and some CDs. So,
Right.
he wasn't eating. So Coach Egger made me start, we went up to Shoney's and fed them every morning at the breakfast buffet. But yeah, I had to figure travel, ground transportation. Um, the
That's a lot
travel
more than
agent did
I
all
do.
the airline, me and the travel agent did all the airline tickets. But yeah, meal money, hotels, because back then I didn't have a credit card, so I'd have to pay the hotel bill
Right.
there on the spot.
Now I carried I think 8,500 might be the most I ever carried. But I had to do that because they didn't even give us I was like you. I was restricted earnings, but probably a little more restricted earnings for the women's basketball. But like I had 8,500 on a road trip, and we ate meals together, so we were paying for the meal. And then they made us actually, and you'd have to pay like a hotel bill, $3,750, and you're giving them $3,700 in cash. Like you're just sitting there going 100, 200, 300, you know, like
Now I'd use traveler's checks a lot, but yeah, I mean, and the cafeteria was closed, so all of our pregame meals we'd have to eat. We ate
right.
at Sterling Stockade.
Sirloin Stockade, we did the same thing.
What was her name? Jane Barrett. Remember her? She worked at
Yep.
the Bank of Murray right there in front of Stewart Stadium. I'd always go up there, and Miss Jane she'd take care of the money for me. Yeah, I remember Cheryl Whitaker, or no, Janet Futrell, because she did all the
Yeah.
money for the athletics.
Right.
She tried to get those people to give me a credit card, and they're like, "Well, he's a part-time employee, so we can't do it."
And of course, you can't have like one of the other coaches doing it because
You
you're
know,
doing travel.
we had. I went and scouted at Ole Miss, and our team was playing at St. Louis University, and Kenny Roth took some of the money and took care of it because he did travel at Arkansas, and so he took care of that trip. But then I drove from Oxford to Nashville, slept on a buddy's couch, and got up at like 4 a.m. and flew to Miami and met the team down there.
Glorious times.
Yep.
So, who was your athletic trainer that year? Was that right before you, Fred?
I don't remember exactly who came when and where, but Paul Newman was my
Paul Newman.
first my
Okay.
first year or two, and he did all the travel.
Right.
And then Alan Lawler came in, and I know my last year Eric Frederick
Was
was,
E. Fred? Yeah.
because Doc Simmons retired and Alan took over as the head trainer, and so
Right.
Eric came in and was basketball.
Yeah. Because he like at one point E. Fred took over all travel. So like
See,
he
that comes from back in the day when assistant coaches didn't have any restrictions. They could recruit 365 days a year, and a lot of times the trainer was the only guy there in the office with the head coach. And so that's when trainers
right.
back in the 50s, 60s, 70s started doing all the team travel.
Yeah.
Eric Frederick's a good man. He's my cousin by marriage. He married my cousin. So
Coach Jagger called
I
him.
didn't know Christy was your cousin.
yeah, you wouldn't believe there's
Coach
not many people in Callaway County and Murray that aren't my cousin.
Oh, I can believe that stuff. I met one of them at the Arboretum one night.
Yeah, when your grandma has 22 brothers and sisters and your dad has 100 first cousins, that's a lot. But
Coach Jagger called him Freddie.
yeah.
Freddie.
Guys, let's wrap it up. Thanks for being on. Good stuff as always. Great stories. Thanks for sharing. We'll I don't know if Dave will be with us next week. He's traveling down to see his parents down in Western Kentucky. But we'll get back on here. So see you guys till next time.
All right, go get them in Omaha, racers.
That's right.
Peace out.